As much as I love cute, wholesome love stories, nothing gets me more fired up than dark, spicy romances. We're talking lustful, fiery acts of passion, steamy, forbidden love affairs, and twisted, morally questionable relationships. I'm sorry if you think that's problematic and repulsive, but that's the stuff I eat up in my fiction, for that extra spice. So let me tell you all about a dark, immoral, spicy romance visual novel, one that stands as my personal favorite Nukige, Bishoujo Mangekyou Noro Watashi Densetsu no Shoujo. That said, I'm just a sucker when it comes to hot vampire girls. If I were to nail it down, Bishoujo Mangekyou 1 is my personal favorite Nukige for 3 reasons. The gorgeous artwork from Happyobi Jin, the seductive, animated charms of a domineering, sadistic vampire, and for telling a romance story of a very interesting relationship between an ordinary human and immortal monster, a teacher and his student, and of an older guy and a young girl. It's eye-raising and controversial. Our characters do some very questionable things, but that makes it even better. There's something about that immoral nature to it that makes it feel so satisfying. That sense of thrill from breaking pre-established norms, the sense of exhilaration that comes from taking on bold risks and dangers. But it's not just about chasing those emotional highs, for there's also that exploration into the psyche of those strange individuals. Shigehiko, a young teacher at an all-girls school, has a passionate love for his female students. He's able to keep his emotions under control until he meets the mysterious, alluring girl Kier Kagurino. But his attempts at pursuing her goes far beyond simply crossing the line, as he stumbles upon her true identity as a noble, prideful, and most of all, sadistic immortal vampire. Again, to address the future allegations, yes, this title is very questionable on paper. The age gap and teacher-student relationship dynamic will surely make most people raise an eye. However, I do have to state, if you fancy the dark, romance, gothic aesthetic with lots of changing power dynamics, I don't think you'll find a better sensual visual novel than this. Of course, obvious warnings ahead for the non-consensual material, but come on, we're all adults here. If this is not your thing, I respect that, and you are free to watch any other video. But to the ones willing to dive a bit deeper, this is for you. Or alternatively, for those who fall hard for those female bloodsuckers. Our main female lead is the star of this title, because Kier is just that perfect blend of domineering, sadistic vampire and yet super cute tsundere. She speaks to Shigehiko as beneath her, a food source for her to prey on. With her irresistible charms and her seductive words, he is desperately trying to keep his moral reasoning in check, to which he crumbles in record time, Kier laughing at him all the while. Lecherous teacher, lowly human servant. There's no end to Kier's mocking remarks as she's basking in his reactions. What she didn't realize is that it means absolutely nothing in the face of this love-struck degenerate. When the girl of his dreams is out there implicitly screaming, "You know you want to me," dressed in a disheveled school uniform, there's nothing stopping him. A teacher should be reprimanded for his lustful eyes towards his own students, but when that bratty schoolgirl goes too far, there's always a time and place for some correction. It's here where that shift in power begins to happen, where in their cardinal acts, our domineering mistress loses herself to the ecstasy. What I love is that while Kier always starts out on top, it doesn't take long for her to fall apart. She folds, and she folds fast. Now, in general, there's something to be appreciated whenever a prideful, arrogant girl turns deeply affectionate. That rapid change from her mouth spitting out sharp-tongued remarks to a voice swept up in blissful passion. That tone shifting from assertive and commanding to bashful and maidenly. The contrast absolutely sells it. And in here, we get to see one noble vampiric tsundere transform into her heated, blushing, and more girlish side as the story continues, where every act of sex is designed to push her buttons harder and harder. To those of you who love watching a girl fall deeper and deeper into pleasure, you will be feasting on these H scenes. They are there for physical gratification, and you are treated to plenty of them, but you can also see their relationship constantly changing too. I do have to say, I was actually appreciating the dialogue for the H scenes in this particular spicy nukige. This is actually the rare instance in which I'm analyzing the H scenes this hard. Never thought I would see the day, but that wild transformation from a domineering mistress to a quivering girl mess is one that's got to be explored. There's a lot of assertive play in here, where one is clearly dominating over the other in the form of extreme teasing and insulting remarks. Both parties get their time as the top. It's a nice balance between the two. We see Kier whimsically giving Shigehiko that sucky suck under the desk, only for him to return the favor by taking her body on top of said desk, all in front of his students. When you're a vampire, there's a lot of fun things you can do with your powers, and the story loves to create some unique scenarios to spice up their fun time, which only escalates the risk and taboo elements even further. Kier herself sure loves to ham that up. That direct appeal of degrading him as an obscene, perverted human scum sure adds that extra excitement for her. Meanwhile, Shigehiko's cheeky returning favors are where he finds the most enjoyment out of. We're seeing the pain and pleasure flares his arousal more and more. Quite the erotic situation as you're watching these two embrace each other out of cardinal sadistic pleasure. That is, if you're not turned off by Shigehiko's dubious actions in the first place. I won't deny it, most of the guy's advances start off non-consensual. Just because his rash, blinded by love actions turned out alright in the end doesn't mean he should get off scot-free. Kier may turn out satisfied, but he's lucky she's okay with it, in that tsundere-esque way. He gets no gratification for his actions, besides Kier draining his blood and balls until he's a withered, dry husk. And even then, you could consider that rewarding. It's treated like your average ecchi rom-com cutaway joke. He does some lewd shenanigan, and then Kier chows down on his body before the screen fades to black. You think he would have some concerns about slapping her ass, but I suppose he's too love-pilled into deluding himself that she actually likes it, which to me has me hoisting up those red flags. His reason for his behaviors are explained away at the story's conclusion, but more characterization and inner conflict would have been very much appreciated. God forbid I ask for good story and character development in my material, am I right? But hey, it does an exceptional job in those naughty scenes. Animated H scenes are already rare in visual novels, and I very much like the visual eye candy and Happobi Jin's art style. Veteran fans out there will recognize his art style from classic titles like Resort Boing and Kanojo x Kanojo x Kanojo, to which a fair amount of you may have already watched the anime adaptation of said titles. I'm a fan. The girls are cute and attractive, wonderfully appealing in their expressions. I just get a kick out of seeing their snarky grins and exasperated faces. But the character designs and H scenes aren't the only thing. The atmospheric aesthetic and set pieces are something I also appreciate too. Whether it's a shot of red roses, or a clear sight of the moon, or just Kier living her best 500-year-old girl boss life, relaxing in her bathtub, wine glass in hand. Something Shigehiko would be very much screaming over. He is one open degenerate, but he didn't start out like this. He was just more of a closeted degenerate before. At first, Shigehiko's a man who's very concerned with his status, fancy luxury car, established teaching reputation, and a celebrity among his female students. His ego, dignity, and basic human morals is what prevented him from acting on his desires. And then he met a white woman and all hell broke loose. But really, Kirie's the same way. Her status as a high-class vampire already gives her that inflated ego. She may feast and savor on human blood and semen, but just like her male partner, when she gets a taste of what it means to feel romantic pleasure, there's no going back. Makes you wonder how strong their upstanding principles actually were. Kier mocks Shigehiko's vain attempts of hiding his true desires, but Kirie's haughty attitude is of a similar vein. And by the end, we're able to see how they change because of each other, in this weird, twisted relationship founded through extreme immoral acts. Maybe the true lesson of Bishoujo Mangekyou 1 is that being an open degenerate is actually better than being a closeted one, and to think that's actually positive character development for one of them. Commendable for him, but something I obviously would not encourage in real life. It's one of the reasons why I like this. It's not exactly your traditional love story, but interesting and amusing to read regardless. Which is why I'm glad that there's more of these types of fascinating relationships in the later installments. Yes, Bishoujo Mangekyou is actually not just a singular visual novel, but a game series, each installment being a self-contained story with its own unique premise and setting. One features a mad scientist living in an isolated tower with his two maid robots, another showcases a very cursed and sensual relationship between a cross-dressing brother and his twin sister, and the fifth installment stars a horror author and the mysterious woman who unveils every one of these supernatural, bizarre worlds. Unfortunately, Bishoujo Mangekyou only has the first installment out in a unofficial translation. And so, having said that, this is my formal request and persuasion for a visual novel publisher out there to officially pick up this series. Because there's plenty of interesting dark stories hiding a wholesome romantic side that have yet to be shared globally. And the animated H scenes will surely not disappoint anyone. If you're interested in another dark, spicy romance, you might want to check out this video over here, or click here for a general recommendation. I would like to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting me in covering visual novels. You guys are fantastic, and if you would like to be a part of that effort, please consider subscribing. And finally, Kier is best girl, next to Renge. If you want my credentials, this is coming from someone who has not one, but two figures of a Miss Kier Kagurino.